So our next topic or next speaker is Ben Vercoe from Barenbrug Tropical Grass Seeds, and he will run us through what's happening with the Barenbrug research. Ben has worked for Barenbrug for 5.5 years, initially as a graduate research technician and then on to a research agronomist before recently moving into the role of portfolio manager for the tropicals and summer crop. Ben's main strength is in tropical pastures and has focused primarily on the development of new varieties and management of existing varieties through extension and on-farm trial work. And his topic for today is tropical research overview. So we'll go with you, Ben. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. And thanks everyone for having me along. Appreciate giving me the opportunity to have a chat and give a bit of an update on where Barenbrug's sitting in the tropical research side. So, as Jeff just mentioned, I'm fairly new into my current role as a portfolio manager. Previous to that, I've spent a lot of time doing the R&D work, running the field trials based out of Toowoomba, but sort of working in that northern New South Wales region and then further north into Queensland. So I'm just going to start off by giving a quick overview to Barenbrug and who are we. So probably a more common name or more recognised name is Heritage Seeds, and we've sort of taken on the parent company name of Barenbrug, so family company based in Holland. We've always been owned by them. Bit of a timeline down the bottom there, but I guess just giving a bit of an overview on who we are and what we've been doing over the last couple of years. So still exactly the same company as what we were as Heritage Seeds, just with a new branding on there. With our new branding, we're really looking at a truly global network of working in with our other opcos around the world, and I guess the reason why I'm highlighting this, and I've underlined a few of the companies that we got listed down there on the side, is that really helps drive and spread our opportunities of developing our tropical market. So a couple of the other Barenbrug businesses that are underlined there, we've got USA, and we're able to source, I think, species like buffles, some of the annuals like the tefts out of the USA, Mexico in the Brachiaria species, Brazil, Chile, again Brachiaria, and some of the panics, and South Africa, again some of the panics, Rhodes grass, and those types of species. So I guess in Australia we've got a really well established research and breeding team. But rather than spreading ourselves thin and trying to focus on too much all at once, we're able to link in and work with our Barenbrug opcos and really, I guess, use our time efficiently and develop what's best for our local region. So bringing in these lines, screening in our local conditions, and then seeing what fits. So in Australia, a few of our key research regions are sort of highlighted on the map there. We've got Kingaroy, which we've done a lot of our tropical research there over the past couple of years. A really good site for that red soil, has quite a cold winter with a few frosts, but also has a good sort of intermediate rainfall of around 700 mils a year, and some hot temperatures as well. Wellcamp is our main site now. So black soil up on top of the range, just out of the back of Toowoomba. So we get some quite significant frost and a really true winter. And that, I guess, helps with our tropical screening to make sure that, I guess, more on point with the discussion for today, talking about southern New South Wales, is that we're screening for frost tolerance and the ability for these tropical plants to survive through winter. Garden, some breeding nurseries, things like that, more of a mild climate, very little frost, if any, nice rainfall in most years, and good hot summers. So I'll just touch on, I guess, some of our breeding work here, and you can see down the left. I guess we probably split it up into three regions. We've got our collaborative breeding partnerships, and a couple of examples there, probably also for our more relevant for our temperate market, but Sardi, and I'm sure everyone would know the Sardi Lucens, plus a few of the clovers that have come through that program. We've got AgriBio, and that's more on the technology front, and so assisting our breeding programs through incorporating technology and genomic research. As I mentioned before, utilising our breeding partners, a few of them listed there on the right. A couple there for in the tropical space, as I mentioned, and a couple in the turf and in the temperate space. So internally, I guess focusing in my portfolio, the breeding programs we've got underway at the moment, roads grass. So really working hard on development of the roads and tying in some of our technological advances. So that's a conventional breeding program on that. Cowpea working at the end of its sort of breeding life cycle there. With the new seed agreement that we went into not too long ago, we've also touched on the grain sorghum forages, pennisetum and sunflowers. So that's sort of where we sit. I guess for breeding at the moment, there's a few others there that are in the works that you know, as they progress, they'll become a bit more known. But that's sort of how we're looking. Brief touch on our southern R&D. So How Long? It's a Barenbrug owned farm down there, and they've been operating for a long time. 5 full-time staff, plant breeder, research agronomists, and technicians. Great ability for us to again send germplasm down south to screen in a true temperate environment. So this year we've got a few demonstration trials going in, not at How Long, sort of closer to Hay, but we also are screening some tropical species down at How Long. Our well camp site up in Toowoomba. So this is a relatively new site to us, and a really big investment, in a way that we're looking to drive our tropical and summer crop research and breeding. So a bit of a drone shot there, and I've highlighted the area that we've got with the yellow line. So we're into sort of the second year of using that site, and you know, well and truly it's paying itself over. So as you can see, we've got our grain sorghum, some of the Rhodes grass, cowpeas, panic species in there. Everything's sort of up and running and going through last winter, going into its second year of assessment there. So up in Toowoomba, what staff we have, we've got one plant breeder. So he's come on, and you know, quite an experienced plant breeder, being in the game for quite some time. One research agronomist, so that's just been my role's just been replaced. We've got someone on deck, a really experienced young researcher from sort of the cropping background, and then 2 research technicians helping run the day-to-day. I guess for well camp, as a bit of a comparison, I put some mean max and min temperatures on there, and just talking about southern New South Wales as a comparison. So Wagga as a mean max temperature of 21.8 degrees and a minimum of 9.6. So sort of in the realm of that Wagga type climate, just I guess a different rainfall pattern. Moving on to some of our secondary sites. As I mentioned before, Kingaroy on the top left. We've had a lot of research data come out of that site. That's a Queensland DPI site there. We leased some ground. Warragul, Victoria, and Gatton, as I mentioned before. So one of our primary research sites. The part of the other, I guess, important part of what my role was previously was working on farm, and just got a snapshot here of a fertilizer trial that ran in conjunction with Beat O'Mara from Insitech Pivot. one was based down at Grafton on the research station down there. Essentially what we're looking at is a tropical pasture. So this was a mix of Megamax 059 Panic and Enduro roads, which is quite a common blend down through that high rainfall zone. And what we were looking at is various fertilizer applications on a large scale under grazing to sort of look at the response that we're getting in tropical grasses and look at what we can do to better manage those pastures. So as you can see pretty clearly there, the darker green patches were our high nitrogen with some potassium treatments, and the blank spots were low fert or no fert treatments. So something that I thought might be quite relevant to this talk was some trial work that we've done over the last 12 months on, I guess, pasture management. From that, we pulled a few of our, I guess, what we identified as the key species that we wanted to look at, and really try to build a bit of a management package around them to support our breeding programs. For today, I've pulled out some of the data that we got for Premier Digit, and this trial was run up for Kingaroy, and the data came off the second year. So it was planted previous year, spent that season making sure that it had really good establishment, and then moved into a cutting interval for the second season. So I guess the questions we're trying to answer through running a trial like this is, how do we maximize the benefits of our tropical pastures? And I know there was a question earlier around some of the, I guess, quality indicators of tropical pastures. And this was one of the key drivers for this trial. So other than Digit, we looked at Rhodes grass, Panic, Soteria, and Signal grass. So for the trial, it was split into 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 week cutting intervals. This trial was run on the research site at Kingaroy, so we didn't have access to grazing, and we cut with a forage harvester. So as you can see, a bit of a breakdown there. The 2 week interval ended up being cut 12 times during the season, the 4 week interval 6 times during the season, and the 6 week interval 4 times. You got your total season yield there across each of them, which I thought was really interesting. And then you had an average yield per cut below that. The seasonal, I guess, key quality indicators, your neutral detergent fiber, crude protein, and your ME there, your metabolizable energy, is what we sort of use to pull out. So as I guess Sue's mentioned, in terms of the quality of some of these tropical pastures, you plot that on a graph, and what you find is that essentially as you get that stem elongation and as you get maturity coming through in the tropicals, your quality declines quite rapidly. And I guess in a lot of cases that's probably common knowledge, but to get some of the data and to plot it and really visualize this information, we thought was important. So Digit here, you can see in the protein levels was actually a little bit up and down through the samples that we got, and I guess compared to a lot of the other species, Digit seemed to hold or had a less drastic decline in its overall pasture quality than some of the other species, particularly Rhodes grass. So as you can see, a little bit more of a steady decline through the ME and the crude protein as the yield increased. When we look at our intersect across all the species, we tended to find that anywhere between that 4 and 5 week interval is where we maximized our quality and also our yield. As you start to drop away or I guess sacrifice your yield, obviously your quality increases quite significantly. And our protein and ME levels were, we're looking quite good on those earlier cutting intervals. Again, the NDF, I guess quite a consistent trend across all the species as the cutting interval increased and the plants moved towards maturity, stem elongation, and increased yield, you also had a much higher fiber content there, which we would have expected. Bit of a photo down the bottom right showing the trial. So planted in long strips and then just cut at the different intervals. So I guess, you know, touching on that last slide, what are we using that information for? Really, what our aim is, and what the aim for my previous role was, to get information to help the end user, the graziers, the growers on farms. So using that information to give us a bit of an idea of how can we best manage some of our tropical pastures. Earlier, Sue's touched on the fact that, you know, a lot of people will walk into a tropical pasture, and you know, this is very relevant up through Queensland, and you've got a tropical pasture that's up over the fence, and it looks fantastic. There's yield, you know, coming out of the ears, and that's not necessarily the best thing for it. Sometimes we can't avoid letting the pastures get up like that. But how can we manage during different rainfall events, you know, in a good season, what our grazing pressure is, what our carrying capacity, and how do we identify what we're expecting to get out of that pasture? So what does that mean for our live weight gain for stock grazing, or what does it mean for hay production? And I guess those two snips on the side there, a bit of a different presentation, maybe for, you know, when we've got a bit more time, starting to break down some of those numbers. We're using a lot of assumptions in that, but it's giving us a bit of an idea, and really starting to, I guess, drive more informed decisions on how we manage those pastures. A few of the points I've got on the left there, I guess, highlighting the fact that breeding processes are long. You can't turn around, you know, have a great idea this year, turn around and say, well, let's have a new product out in the market next year. It's a long process, particularly if you're bringing in germplasm from overseas. Tropical grasses, we've got to go through quarantine. You get small amounts, go through the bulk ups, screening in the local environment, and then go through your seed production before you get to market. Jake touched on the seed production. It's a really difficult process in the tropical space. A lot of seed production doesn't come from seed producers. A lot of seed production comes from graziers that have an opportunistic harvest. So particularly species like buffles, bluegrasses, you know, they're much more opportunistically harvested, and so the seed quality is often a lot lower. Part of our breeding programs and I guess key drivers for breeding includes having much better seed viability and seed yield as well. So, you know, that helps us to bring new products through, and it also helps in the field for that seedling recruitment and longevity in the field. Again, understanding how tropical species respond to rainfall, temperature, fertility. So as I sort of spoke about with some of this trial work is really understanding what drives the tropicals to react in different ways, and that helps us set our breeding targets and I guess figure out where we want to go, because we're looking 10 to 20 years in advance rather than just what's happening right now. You know, I guess, and looking out 10 to 20 years with a changing climate, a key driver and another key target in these breeding programs is the ability to persist in cooler temperatures or cooler climates as you head further south. So it's, you know, it's not something that's going to change overnight, but it's certainly something that we're aware of, and we're working towards better options for southern New South Wales, and into those temperate environments. Skip over some of that stuff, but I guess my final point is that the more information, the better. I guess coming from a research background, I love to have physical data. I love to know as much information as I can before I make a decision, and I guess that's where we're working towards. We want to have that full data package. We want to have as much information as we can, so when we go out on the road and we're selling seed, you know, we can give the full explanation on how best to manage that and how to get the most out of these tropical pastures. Where to next? You know, I think Suze and Sarah and everyone from the New South Wales DPI in particular are doing a really good job in the trial work that they're working on for particularly establishment of the tropical pastures, and for a few reasons that we've touched on. And it was mentioned a couple of times there as well that I guess in that management, how do we get them to fit with temperate species? So it's certainly an interesting topic as we start to get into that crossover for tropical and temperate species, and how do you manage to make sure that that you get the most out of both without sacrificing one or the other. And the other one was survival through winter. So, you know, how do you manage your pasture to make sure it's got the best chance of surviving through winter? Sue's put some photos up there of snow. You know, that's a lot of tropical pastures are really suited to that. I guess regions that have no frost at all. So, you know, how do we set up the pastures to make sure they've got the best chance, whether it's through fertility, management, in your grazing or cutting, whatever your system might be. There's a lot of different ways to approach it. So that's all I've got. Bit of a cluster there, but all of our territory managers listed there. I think we've got a link that's going to go into the chat where you can contact either myself or one of your relevant local territory managers. But thanks a lot for having me on, and yeah, appreciate the time.
Great, thanks, Ben. Some great information in there. Just a quick few questions, and actually first, before I go forward with those questions, I'll apologise for my pronunciation of Barenbrug. I got that wrong initially, so sorry about that. A question from Rowan: have you got the info of conversion to weight gain or carrying capacity, which you did show there at the end, and have you had that run through GrazFeed for some comparisons for the southern New South Wales, perhaps?
Yep, so definitely have the information. Haven't run that through GrazFeed as of yet, but certainly working towards things like that. All of our territory managers should have a copy of the trial work and presentations that we've got going forward. You know, more than happy for you to reach out to me afterwards, and you know, I can look at some of the data a bit more closely. Yeah.
Yep. And so just another question on that: the data that was there on that last slide, is that available in a booklet or on your webpage somewhere?
It's not at the moment. Sort of only finalised some of the quality data coming back in the last couple of months. Definitely the aim to have it in a booklet form, bit of a management package, if you like, and hoping to have that available sometime in the near future. But at the moment, I've got the breakdown of the different species including that sort of live weight gain and the conversion type stuff in a presentation form, and the relevant territory managers and myself, I'm happy to talk people through it. Yeah. Great.
Question from Nathan at Albury: are there any issues with fertilizers and fertilizer rates at sowing affecting germination with your subtropicals or tropicals?
I typically up our way, we struggle to get people to sow with fertilizer at all, but I would imagine, you know, similar to what you'd see in a lot of your cropping instances with a really close fertilizer placement to the seed, there's definitely a potential to see an effect on germination. I definitely recommend planting with fertilizer for sure. Definitely gives the plants much better opportunity to get up and away. Sue's mentioned it earlier on, the tropical pastures are typically lower in their overall seed quality. They also are quite small seeds, have quite a low vigor, you know, so giving them every opportunity to get up and away as they can is definitely good. Yep,
great. A question from Claire, and you might be able to answer this, Ben, or one of our other presenters. Is there any research on mixed species, not individual species in trials? So Example, 3 or 4 grasses, species with 2 legumes or herbs or other species in the mix.
Nothing that I have at the moment. We do have some mixed pasture plots planted out that we're looking to do some research on in terms of yield and quality. Can be quite difficult in the tropicals to sort of get an accurate representation of a good pasture mix. But yeah, nothing I have at the moment. Not sure about Suze or Jake or Sarah, yourself, Jeff. But... Looks like maybe no.
So the comment from Suze, superphosphate or a low nitrogen compound fertilizer can be used to mix with the seed, provided only 10 to 15 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare is applied. So thanks for that, Suze. It looks like we've sort of almost come to the end of our questions. And if is there anything else you wanted to add in there, Ben?
No, all good for me. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate the time.